The purpose of turning the stream on right now, and maybe having some fun drafting a little bit, is to give a quick walkthrough on how to run a draft. There are a couple people who have very graciously either acquired my cube or um, have set up rental systems or however they see fit, and I wanted to that are interested in running the cube. So I wanted to give a quick rundown on how I do it, and I think you can. I think I do it very efficiently, and it can be done very quickly as long as everyone does the proper steps. Now, some of that's out of your control. The players have some element of control, and if they don't do what is asked of them, it can make the return process a little bit longer. But in general, as far as getting the cards to players, it's pretty much all in your hands, and you can do it pretty quickly as long as you follow this process. This can be done for any cube, of course, or any kind of draft. You can do any kind of flashback draft. Draftmaster has lots of fun options to do chaos drafts. You can set up very wild options. You could take some time exploring the settings. I don't mess around too much in here. I have the thing I do, and I do it over and over. But you have lots of things you can do with changing set boosters. You can change the number of cards in each pack. You can burn cards in each pack. You can randomize multiple sets in the same thing if you want to do some like super real chaos draft. But the purpose of this short section is about how to run a cube draft. So you'll first have to go to draftmancer.com. I assume you're familiar, but if at this point you're not, then this does not require any kind of username or it doesn't require any kind of account. It's just a browser app. You go here, you just go to draftmancer.com, put your username up here, make your session ID. This doesn't matter. This is just the tag that people will need to get into the draft. You can change your session ID at any point by just typing up here. If you are the person that creates the draft, then you will be the king. You'll have the crown, the session owner, and you'll have command over the options of Draftmancer. Now, what can happen sometimes is if you have connectivity issues and you momentarily disconnect from Draftmaster and other people are in the draft, you may lose session ownership. So that's something to handle with you and the players if that happens. You can communicate with the player who gains session ownership and ask them to give it back to you. You have to, in order to do that, they'll have to click on this area of your name. If I don't think I can add a bot here. I can, but it won't properly display. If there's another player in the draft, then their name will show up here, and you'll have some options on the right side of their name. One of them is give session ownership. So I have to walk through that player giving you session ownership back, but that's only if you either close the browser or if you have connectivity issues on your internet connection or Wi-Fi. So you'll create the draft by going here, putting your name in, putting the session ID in here. From this point, you'll need to gain access to the list of cards that you're going to draft. That's pretty straightforward. Go up here to settings. And if you click on settings, again, we're going to get back to this menu with lots of options. We're going to ignore all of this. I choose to use color balance. This is not actually a game design choice on me. It's just the default. Players tend to like color balance anyway, and I'm not the kind of person who messes too much with settings. I try to work within the restrictions of the settings. But you can turn off color balance if you want a truly random draft. I think it's probably better balanced, but either one's fine. From here, like I said, all of this is here. If you want to turn on team draft, it's right here. Team draft doesn't really functionally do much. This option, it changes the bracket and it changes the colors of the names, and it helps identify who the players are in each team. But if you play a 6-player draft or an 8-player draft, you can functionally have team draft without turning this on by just having alternate seats be the different teams. So this is just an easy way to see things, but it's not necessary if you want to run a team draft. What we're going to do is go down to here. This is how you upload a card list to Draftmancer for the draft. Now, I get the feeling a lot of people use this option here, where they download a copy of the cube and then upload through here. This works. There's nothing wrong with it. One thing for me is I change my cubes when I'm actively playing them pretty much on a daily basis, and I want to make sure that I get the newest version of it. And if there's one downloaded from yesterday or last week, there's almost certainly going to be some number of changes. So in order to get the correct and updated version of the cube, go to import from Cube Cobra. Now, I've been drafting this cube repeatedly in the last couple of months, so it's already here, but you can just type this in, and this will be, it's case sensitive here, so you need to have the proper case. Once this is here, if you want to have match exact card versions, this will match the art that's on Cube Cobra. I should be more diligent about this. There are some wacky art versions, but I'm not. So you can do that. This doesn't matter. If you turn this off, it's still the same cards. So it might be easier for players to identify if you do match exact card versions. So there is a lot of new cards in this cube and a lot of new cards in general. It's something I like to experiment with. So it can help if they're the same art to help minimize the number of identification issues that occur during the draft. Once you have this listed, click import and it will load. And it's done. So you can just close this. From here, players will be populating the draft. Once the players are here and you have a full seat table, you can click ready check. Now, of course, there's no one here, so no one's going to check, and I'm ready, so we'll do that. And you can turn on a timer right here. I typically do times 0 timer draft. If you time it at 0, then there's no timer. If you want to have a actual timer, I don't think there's a reason to in what we do, but if you decide that is the case, then you can turn this on. I've not really had any issues with players taking way too long, so it's not necessary. So we do it at 0. You can add bots. I get the feeling if you are setting up a draft, then you have no desire to draft with bots, but if you need to for personal testing reasons, you can add bots here. And then the draft master won't let you draft unless you have an appropriate number of players. I'm not sure exactly what that might be. It will tell you if you can't draft though. So I'm going to skip the draft section here, and you can check out other videos I've recorded to find that out. But this purpose of this walkthrough is not to talk about actually drafting, it's to talk about the logistics of completing the draft and getting cards to players. So you'll draft, and everyone will have, once you get the 45th pick, you'll have your deck, or if you're supervising, which one thing we can talk about is if you want to spectate a session owner, that is an option. You can click right here. It takes you out of the draft, but you're allowed to watch the draft with this, and then you'll have 8 players, and you can watch. I used to do this when I was streaming with commentators like Strategist or B. Jackson. It's not a way I've been doing it lately. It's fun. We can do it again in the future, but it's just not what I've been doing lately. And if you spectate a session owner, you can pop around from player to player and see what they're drafting. So that's cool. Once you're done drafting, you'll have decks. Everyone will have decks. The next step you need to do is get the deck lists. And in order to do that, go up to Game Logs. Game Logs will store all of the drafts that you've been part of. I think the last 25 drafts I've not actually counted. As far as I know, these are stored locally on your computer. You'll have to check into that. I'm not exactly sure. I think it's cookie based. But anyways, the last one you just did will show up here. It will have the timestamp, it will have the name of the drafts. And if you, for some reason, want to go back and find deck lists, you can. And this could be interesting. You can submit these logs to Magic Pro Tools. You can see the course of the draft. This is a bit of a diversion from the topic here, but you can see the draft, which is cool, but you can also go to any player and see their draft if you're interested in other people's approach. But that's not what we're doing here today. We're here to get the cards and move on with life. So you from here, you go to Game Logs, you find the draft you want, you go to Download All Decks, and then you click on here, and you want the format. There's a temptation to do .deck. This will cause problems. So the Magic Online is version specific. So each different version of Birds of Paradise is a unique card in Magic Online. And there's like 30 versions of Birds of Paradise, right? So if you try to use the .deck file and the Cube Cobra doesn't have the proper version compared to what's in your collection, then this will cause an issue, and you could probably write it once you get into Magic Online, but sometimes it can be a challenge that's not necessary. So the other thing is that certain cards like split cards and flip cards often cause problems with .deck files. They will either show that it's not a card or things like that. That's why if you get deck lists that are 44 or 43 cards, it's frequently because you chose .deck. We will need to make a .deck file down the line, but not at this point. I would highly suggest going to card names and downloading. You could turn off basics. I would not trade basics. This is, of course, a personal choice for you. The reason I don't is because, one, I would slowly bleed basics from my account, but two, the file that I give to my players is a clean 45 cards, and it's just easy to identify if something's missing. So go to card names, hit download, and then this will all show up here. I should have done a little bit of research here. I have heard that there are browser settings which can cause the browser to not download multiple files at the same time. If you are having trouble downloading with this option, I would search in your browser and see if that is a setting you can turn off or turn on. Let's download multiple things at the same time. So if you, for some reason, can't download multiple files at the same time, what you can do is go to every player and then export card names. This gets a little cumbersome, but this is how I used to do it. What I would do is you go to export card names. That will copy it to clipboard, save it to a text file in Notepad, save that somewhere, and that will be your text file. That's another way you can do this. This takes a little bit longer. So hopefully you get it set up so card names works. From this point, all those will be saved somewhere. Of course, where they're saved is dependent on your browser settings for downloads. Mine just downloads the default download file for Windows. So then you go to Magic Online, you go to your collection, and then you hit this bottom left button right here. This is Add Deck. You go to Import. It's going to ask you to select a file. We're going to go to Downloads, and then they will all appear wherever you chose to download them, right? And so these will be here. You can check, they'll have the name of the session, they'll have the name of the player and everything. And you can select all of them at the same time using shift click or control click, and they will show up. One frustrating thing is that Magic Online appears to randomly assign Freeform or Freeform Vanguard, and I don't know why. And you can't change it from this point, but you will need to change it for simplicity purposes. Well, you can do that once we upload the deck. Once we upload the deck, it will appear in either Freeform or Freeform Vanguard. I'm going to show you a couple things here. What I do is I change all the formats to Freeform Vanguard so I can do a quick check and see all 8 decks are here. If a deck has an issue of some kind, it'll appear as this triangle. So sometimes that means deck is too small, but let's take a card I don't own. I don't know. Let's go to quantity 0. Just pick something. It doesn't matter. Please populate. So like I don't have this Mana Crypt, right? And maybe I should because it's kind of sick. They're all kind of sick. Anyways, I don't have this Mana Crypt, so now this deck will have this icon here, and it says the deck contains versions of cards not in your collection. I do have a Mana Crypt in general, so I can right-click here and update with versions in collection, and then it will put the proper one there. So let's take another card I don't have, like Calamax. I don't have this card. And if I right click here, it will say deck contains cards not in your collection. And you can, if you have a bunch of cards that are missing for some reason, you can right click and add missing cards to wish list. Go to wish list, and then this will have all the cards that you're missing for the player's decks. So one quick thing you can do is just right click, and then if any deck has an error like this, you can right click and add missing cards to wish list. If you choose to purchase these cards, you can go to GoatBots or MTGO Traders or whoever you want, and you can just offer them. You can say, hey, I'd like to purchase cards. If you've never done that, hopefully GoatBots picks up the phone. Oh my God, it's going to work. So you can go to search tools here, and then you get select wish list. And this will just pick all the cards from your wish list, and you could purchase them this way. I'm not saying you need to purchase anything. I'm just saying that's how you do it. You can alternatively export your wish list as a text file and then go to whatever rental service you're using to rent those cards. Makes life a little bit easier. From here, what you will do is once you have all the cards acquired and set, you can select everything with shift click or control click, standard Windows commands here. Right click and hit export selected deck files. And I'm going to export multiple. One thing I've done is I've made this is quick select, I don't remember what it's called anymore, but in, on my quick access over here, I have a folder for my drafts from Diffree Cubes. So this is my Modern Vintage folder. You can see we've got the last 40 or so drafts that I've run in here. What I do is I add a new folder. I'm going to call this testing. I usually put the day's date on there, and then if it's multiple drafts, I'll do 2, 3, so on. Open it up, and then just save the file. Now, what we're doing is we're saving a .dec file. This is important for trading. So you can hit save, and you can just hit enter a bunch of times. You can do it 8 times. It's just going to save all those. So now you've created a deck file. This is important because a .dec file preserves the versions of the cards per Magic Online. And this will allow you to trade the correct version from your collection. And this will come up on the trade back too. So then what you'll do, once you have those .dec files created, go to this button, which is Add Binder. And this is a binder, if you're unfamiliar, is a collection of cards that you are putting together to trade to someone else. And what we're going to do is go to all those saved .dec files. Again, we mass select everything. And then we'll go to trade binders. Now all those decks are available as trade binders. And you are just about ready to go. From here, you need to make sure that players are on Magic Online. Otherwise, they can't take your cards. As you can see, I've traded with quite a few people. You actually can't see. Okay, hold on. Perfect. Okay. So yeah, you know, drafted with a good number of people. I'm going to act like I'm drafting with GoatBots though. We're going to right-click their name and trade, and then we're going to offer them the deck that is associated with them. Then you'll hit OK. I don't want to sell these cards to GoatBots, so we're not going to do that. Once you get into the trade window, though, you can, if the player is unfamiliar with the Magic Online trading system, I would encourage them to mass select. So what you can do is you can click a single card. I'm going to trade with GoatBots. Hopefully they pick up the phone here. You can click on a single card and hit Control A, and this will mass select the entirety of the cards. Of course, when I'm looking at GoatBots here, it's a ton of cards, 206,000. And you can draft everything. It's not going to let me do it because it's too many cards. But for a deck, it'll always work as 45 cards. They'll all appear here. You hit submit, you hit confirm trade, they get the cards. You do that for all 8 players. Everyone has their decks. To return the files, what you'll need to do is go to Discord and hold on. Do it like this. Preserve a little bit of privacy here. You go to Discord and then I'll upload all of the deck files. So these will appear here, and then the players will have the files they need. It is important for them to use these files, and because this is the only way to get back the correct versions with 100% certainty. When if you want to walk them through it, you go to go to collection, hit add trade binder, and we're going to do the same thing you already did to get all the trade binders to trade them. But they'll take the one file associated with them, they'll import it, and then I don't know if it was Chacho, we would add Chacho's deck up and it would be a binder. And then Chacho can trade with us and add that binder. If there can be some hurdles, the first one that happens is that players did not use the .dec file. What will happen is when the trade is offered to you, it will show fewer than 45 cards. Doesn't matter how many fewer, but it will say 32 or 41 or whatever. You know, it's not the complete collection of cards. So I would tell the player, please use the .dec file. That will correct this. And most of the time they close it and they offer it again, it works out. If for some reason there's a miscommunication and this information can't be imparted successfully, or something's not working on their part, this should always work, but maybe it doesn't. I don't know. You can suggest to them that they offer the full trade list. This causes some issues, but you gonna cancel this? It does work. This always works as well, unless they don't want to trade with me. There we go. Okay, so this always works as well, but there is a caveat to it. and you have to be a little vigilant. Okay. So you can use, while you're in trading with a player, you can use search tools, and then you can import a deck. We'll just pick Clam's deck from the other day. And it will automatically take every card to build the deck. But there's a problem. As you can see, I uploaded the deck and got no cards here. What Magic Online does when you use search tools, import deck, is it's going to take every card you currently don't have to build that deck. And it's going to leave everything that you already have. But it doesn't account for multiples in your account. So if you have 3 Creeping Tar Pits, for instance, and you trade one of them away, and then you use import deck list, it's not going to take Creeping Tar Pit back, because it's looking at the deck and says, you already have Creeping Tar Pit, I don't need this card. So what you'll have to do in that case is those cards will appear in the search when you use search by deck list, but you'll have to go through and manually click them to add them. I think there's another way to go about this. I shouldn't have brought this up because I don't remember the exact details of it. I think if you select all and pull them all into the trade, it will work, but I would be careful. Usually if a card is a card that you have multiples of, it's a common or uncommon, and then they're virtually worthless, which is the nature of Magic Online. Some players don't like it when you take their cards, because they may have a specific version of Inquisition of Kozilek, you know. Maybe they like that one, and they don't have to go figure out that they're missing, and then have to go get it again. So that's that. I think that basically covers everything. Let's go back to Draftmancer for a second. So the last thing would be to build a bracket, which we could have gone over earlier, but to build a bracket, you use this button right here, generate bracket, and then we always do 3 round Swiss, but you could do the other ones if you felt so inclined, and then you just hit regenerate. It's not gonna let me do it because there's no one in the draft here, but the bracket will appear. Once the bracket is there, you'll be able to put in match wins, so on, and then the bracket will correct. Remember that the pairings in round 2 and 3 are not accurate until all match results have been entered. So tell players do not start round 2 or do not start round 3 until all of the matches are finished. Sometimes there's bracket errors concerning this position. I haven't figured out why. Sometimes the 2 O2s don't get paired together. That's something that we're kind of investigating at the moment. If you can't make a bracket, it's because you don't have session ownership. So find out who does and get the session ownership back. Then finally, it's really best practice to build a bracket like immediately after the draft is done, because if anyone leaves, the seeding gets messed up. And if you don't remember what the seeding was, then your bracket won't be accurate per the draft. I personally don't really care about that, but some people do, and it is more correct to have bracket pairings based on seeding. So that's all. Cool. That should cover everything for running a draft. If you run into any kind of problems, let me know. But otherwise, have fun, I'm usually available on Discord. You can ping me on there.